It is my great honor to take a little time to introduce you to your very own deck. Often called the organ of emotion, the human face is a dynamic canvas and one of our most powerful channels of nonverbal communication. From the moment we're born, we're constantly monitoring, mirroring, and reading the faces around us, looking for cues so that we can better understand what others are feeling and assess whether we're loved and safe in the world. The human capacity to form healthy attachments is deeply determined by the quality of presence in the faces of our early caregivers. Studies have shown that when babies are met with empathic faces, they relax and thrive, and when they're met with neutral to negative expressions, they often become emotionally disorganized and struggle to form healthy bonds as they grow up. That said, we are immensely resilient. We have the potential to heal old wounds through the formation of new, loving attachments. Just looking into a face that reflects love and acceptance can have a lasting impact on how we see and experience ourselves, as well as our ability to give and receive love. The human face also transmits deeper states of consciousness. So when we spend a long enough time looking into the eyes of a truly present being, we begin to access our own inner radiance and aliveness. The 64 Faces of Awakening have come to specifically recognize your potential, reflect your beauty, and receive your love. Connect with each face as you would a friend, a grandmother, a mentor, a lover, or a guide. Relax into the gleam in the eye. Allow yourself over time to develop a sincere relationship with each of the wisdom keepers. You'll be surprised at the power of their medicine. Though each face is different, they all come to love you unconditionally, to reveal important truths about who you are, and to help you remember the dreams that have been seated in your soul. Now I'd like to invite you to open your own deck. If you like, you can hold your deck close to your heart first for a minute, or press pause so that you have time to bless your deck in the way that feels best to you. Just holding your hands over your deck, envisioning your deck surrounded by love or a bright, soft ball of energy or chi can be very sweet and powerful. And while you do this, I invite you to imagine that you're about to meet your soul family, a whole group of people who've come from all over the world, and they've traveled through time and space, from the past, the present, even the future, just to love you and support you. As you open your deck, feel your heart opening with it. Get yourself into wide open receiving mode. Know that this is just the beginning for you. It's just the beginning of a deep, compassionate, healing, and empowering relational adventure. Now take out the mini inner guidebook, or if you've happened to purchase the larger paperback version of the inner guidebook for easier reading, you can open that. For now, let's give you just a general lay of the land. As you slowly browse through the book, what you're going to see is the table of contents, a beautiful poem written by a dear friend of mine and wise woman, Prem Tanmayo. You'll find some introductory words about the deck, about the human face, as I've just shared with you here, a sharing about the creative process and how the wisdom keepers and their stories came to me in the first place. Then I share about the special number of the 64, and about the gene keys, which is a profound synthesis brought to the world by Richard Rudd, poet, author, philosopher. And just to say here that the Gene Keys transmission has been a deep source of inspiration in my life and has been carefully and lovingly integrated into this deck. You're also going to find an exploration of the shadow and its sacred role in this deck and in our lives. And this is really important when it comes to this deck, so I really recommend that you spend some time here. Keep turning the pages, and you'll learn how the deck can be used as a supplement for Gene Keys or human design enthusiasts. You'll also see a list of what information you can expect to find in relation to each Wisdom Keeper card. And then, as you can see, the inner guidebook will take you through each of the 65 cards. And each card will include a quote from Richard Rudd, the 3 key words associated with the Wisdom Keeper, a gift that this Wisdom Keeper has come to embody and inspire in you, a shadow that the Wisdom Keeper has experienced and embraced along their transformational journey, and a city or a spiritual essence that the wisdom keeper has the potential to awaken in you or help you to remember, since it already exists inside you. Each wisdom keeper has a programming partner or a soul friend whose story, qualities, and gifts and shadows help to form a life paradox as well as a wholeness. Each wisdom keeper also has a story of transformation to share with you. Some words of wisdom for you, called a gift for you, and finally some questions to support you in your own contemplative process. And then towards the back of the book, you're going to find suggestions for how you might want to work with the cards, including spreads that you can use for inspiration. Now I'd like to invite you to begin creating a relationship with the wisdom keepers in your own deck, so it gets much more visceral and physical for you. So start by holding the cards in your hand and begin to go through them one by one. Take your time. Get a feel for each wisdom keeper. Enjoy holding them in your hands. Notice how each of the wisdom keepers makes you feel. Notice the ones that speak to you today, realizing that on another day, other wisdom keepers might speak to you. Notice that the last card in the deck is different from all of the others. It's a mirror card because you ultimately are the wisdom keeper that you're looking for. You should see a little sticker on the surface of this mirror portion of the card telling you to peel off the protective layers. Feel free to do that now. You'll notice that this card is slightly thicker than the others, so in the future, if you want to do a blind draw where you don't know which card you're picking, I encourage you to spread them out face down so that you can only see the back surface of the cards and not the thickness, and that should help you there. Slowly run your hand over the cards or allow your eyes to soften while gazing at the backs of the cards and sense the energy. Use your intuition when picking your wisdom keeper. Now that the wisdom keepers have found a home in your home, you've got plenty of time to get to know them, to learn from them, to converse with them, to be inspired by them, and to discover that you have the same potential that they have. Whenever working with the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, whether it's during this course or in your everyday life or everyday practice, I really encourage you to take time to just be with your wisdom keepers before referring to the inner guidebook. Look into their eyes, take in all of the symbols on their faces, trusting the significance will come to you in the perfect time. Allow a genuine connection to unfold between you and this being, welcoming the feelings, thoughts, and associations that might arise. Then, in your own time, you can go to the page in the inner guidebook where this wisdom keeper appears. Read what you're drawn to reading. And keep in mind that there may be parts of the wisdom keeper's story that you relate to easily and parts that you don't, and that's totally fine. You're not this wisdom keeper, but you are a wisdom keeper with your own story and your own way of relating to the themes that are illuminated through this person's life. So in addition to using them in the Wisdom Wheel of Integrity course, I also encourage you to share the wisdom keepers with your friends, families, and communities. I wish you a magical, rich, and ever-deepening relationship with these precious beings. May they help you uncover the unique wisdom you're meant to bring to this powerfully transformative time in human history. For centuries, Native American and indigenous cultures have identified the elders and teachers in their communities as wisdom keepers. Wisdom keepers have been revered and trusted not only for their sharp minds, but their compassionate hearts and strong spirits. Able to embody and impart sacred, holistic teachings, and to nurture a humble yet potent relationship with the great mystery, wisdom keepers have helped their communities through hard times for generations and generations. So both spiritually and practically, they've served their communities by bringing everybody in the tribe closer together, as well as closer to the earth and to the whole cosmos. Now, many people in today's world are like me. They're wisdom seekers who long for the healing and empowering guidance that wisdom keepers have traditionally provided in the past. But many of us have lost touch with the ways of our ancestors. Very few of us still live in indigenous or traditional communities where elders are respected and responsible for passing down ancient, experientially tested wisdom to the younger generations. Many of us turn to modern-day professional wisdom keepers for support and inspiration when we need it. Others of us feel like we have nowhere to turn. And this is one of the main reasons why I created the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. I wanted to offer a loving family of wisdom keepers to people like me and to people like you. So now that you've had the chance to thoroughly acquaint yourself with your own deck, you've probably noticed that many of the faces are of indigenous elders, the kinds that we typically associate with traditional wisdom keepers. But you've probably also noticed that some of the wisdom keepers look a little bit different than the ones that we often think of. And that's because these days, wisdom keepers come in all ages, shapes, and sizes. And some of them look a lot like you and me, or like the compassionate people we've known, worked with, learned from, or played with throughout our lives. There are even young wisdom keepers in this deck because, Lord knows, there are some incredibly wise children out there. I certainly learn so much from my daughter every single day. And just because we're getting older doesn't necessarily mean we're getting any wiser. Wisdom is certainly not a given. So first, a little disclaimer. I just want to start by saying that I don't claim to be a Buddhist, a shaman, or a traditional wisdom keeper. I kind of like to think of myself more as a synthesis-loving wisdom keeper in training who's drawn to wisdom wherever I happen to find it. So this means that this oracle deck is not an ancestral indigenous tool, although it may reflect aspects of wisdom that I've gathered over the years of personal and spiritual explorations, which have been greatly inspired by earth-based indigenous wisdom teachings. I also want to say it's not meant to be a substitute for a deep Buddhist practice or the kind of shamanic journey that can only really be taken over a long period of time with the guidance of somebody, and ideally in the context of a community that has been deeply steeped in the medicinal arts for generations. Since we're going to be working with the wheel during this course, in this case a wisdom wheel of integrity, I'd like to take a moment to honor the wheel as a sacred and universal symbol, one that has been utilized all over the world. I believe it holds special relevance to and is especially suited for an exploration of integrity. The wheel, for example, is one of the oldest symbols in Buddhism, meaning perfection. While there are many variations of the wheel of Dharma, they usually contain 8 spokes representing the eightfold path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Now, Dharma wheels with 4 spokes symbolize the 4 noble truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. Dharma wheels with 24 spokes, known as the Ashoka Chakra, illuminate the 24 ideal qualities of a follower of Buddhism. Altogether, the 3 aspects of the Dharma wheel symbolize concentration, ethics, and wisdom, all essential teachings of Buddhism. And the hub at the very center of the Dharma wheel represents moral discipline. The reason these teachings were described as a wheel was because they were able to move and travel throughout the land and help people relieve themselves of suffering by learning how to harness the mind. Now, in Hindu traditions, the Dharma wheel, often found in depictions of Vishnu, is associated with law, preservation, and with restoring and maintaining order in the world. Now, in Tibet, the Dharma wheel is considered an auspicious symbol, typically placed between 2 deer, reminiscent of Buddha's first teaching in a deer park. Now, this wheel reminds us that Buddha didn't only value humans, but all beings and all life. It also had been portrayed as a weapon used to overcome ignorance. Now, the medicine wheel, sacred hoop, or wheel of life, is also a very powerful symbol used in Native American traditions and by indigenous peoples in the Americas. This symbol lives and breathes at the heart of the shamanic path, and it will be holding and inspiring us throughout our journey. Although there are many cultural variations of the wheel depending on the tribe, the medicine wheel remains an archetypal symbol of transformation and is most often represented by 4 directions, each with its corresponding season, color, element, animals, and archetypal essences. In addition to the 4 directions, the traditional medicine wheel acknowledges 3 more directions: above, Father Sky; below, Mother Earth; and center, right where the sacred fire of self sits. Now, in this particular course, we're going to be including the center of the wheel along with the 4 directions. Now, the fact that the wheel is a circle helps us to remember the cycle of life. When it comes to our lives, there is no beginning or end, no straight path we must follow to make sure we get from point A to point B, and no true division between you and me or between me and a mountain. One of the most essential wisdom teachings of indigenous cultures, whether Buddhist, Hindu, or Native American, is that all things on earth are living. And no matter how things seem on the surface or around the extended family dinner table, especially these days, all beings are profoundly interconnected. So not exactly a wheel, but in Western mythology, we have King Arthur's Round Table. And the Round Table can be seen as a symbol of shared power and equality, as opposed to hierarchy and dominance. In a way, what we're going to be doing together in this course is inviting a council of wisdom keepers to sit down at the round table in our hearts. Each wisdom keeper is essential. Each one has a perspective that's needed. Each one gets to have a say. Ultimately, the wheel or table has the potential to show us a way to live in harmony with ourselves, with our community, with nature, and with spirit. It also invites us to see all things as living, including the cards in this deck. So in this way, the wheel makes the perfect symbol for us to be using as we dive deeply into an exploration of integrity. I loved what Black Elk had to say in Black Elk Speaks so much, I wanted to share a bit of it with you here on circles. So this is a quote from Black Elk. "You've noticed that everything an Indian does in a circle. And that's because the power of the world always works in circles and everything tries to be round. In the old days, all of our power came to us from the sacred hoop of the nation, and so long as the hoop was unbroken, the people flourished. The flowering tree was the living center of the hoop, and the circle of the 4 quarters nourished it. The east gave peace and light. The south gave warmth. The west gave rain, and the north with its cold and mighty wind gave strength and endurance. This knowledge came to us from the outer world with our religion. Everything the power of the world does is done in a circle. The sky is round, and I've heard that the earth is round. So are all the stars. The wind in its greatest power whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same, and both are round. Even the seasons form a great circle, and they're changing, and always come back again to where they were. The life of a man and woman is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. Our teepees were round like the nests of the birds, and these were always set in a circle. The nation's hoop, a nest of many nests, where the Great Spirit meant for us to hatch our children." That is a quote from Black Elk, holy man of the Oglala Sioux. Before we pick our first card together, the wisdom keeper that is going to be sitting at the very center of our wisdom wheel, the one who's going to lovingly witness and bring balance to our entire process of integrity building. It's time to prepare the ground. So let's take out a large sheet of paper and place it somewhere that feels like a good place to have your spread. And take a marker or pencil and draw a simple medicine wheel, a large circle with 4 quadrants. Make sure that your circle is big enough so that there's room to place 4 cards, each at a quarter point along the circle, and 1 in the center of the circle. We'll be pulling 5 cards all together over the course of our integrity journey. I'll be pulling cards on behalf of the collective to shed light on our shared journey together, and each of you will be pulling your own cards to reflect your unique journey. I really encourage you to find a calm, sacred place for your wisdom wheel, ideally somewhere where the wheel can remain over the coming days and weeks. I'd really like you to be able to visit your wisdom wheel whenever you like and to feel like you have a place where your counsel lives and is available to provide you with love, insight, and guidance.